This video is brought to you by KPD Sports Media. For all of your latest highlights, takes, and podcasts, check out KPD Sports Media at KPD Sports Media on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And now, to Big Ten Breakdown. Welcome in to Big Ten Breakdown, the ultimate basketball podcast. I'm your host, Jake Wilson, and whether you're a lifelong fan or a newcomer to this league, this podcast will be your ultimate companion throughout the college basketball season. How are you guys doing today? I'm doing fantastic. I hope you are. And who doesn't want to talk about Big Ten basketball? It's been an absolutely crazy offseason full of transfers, recruits, coaching hires, coaching fires, and 4 new teams coming to the Big Ten. Why don't we just dive straight into this? Okay, we got to cover what has been going on across college basketball. This has been the biggest transfer portal season in college basketball history, with over 1,000 players entering and transferring to another school. You're going to start to see small school names turn into big players. I mean, you see it last year. You have guys like Aaron Estrada from Alabama. You have guys like Marcus Damask, who transferred from Southern Illinois to Illinois and just went on an absolute tear. And we'll get to Marcus Damask in Illinois in a minute. And then you also have guys like Lance Jones from Purdue. Southern Illinois as well plays a key role in Purdue's run to the national championship. The transfer portal is the new way of recruiting in college basketball. And if you're not diving into the transfer portal, I don't know how you're going to succeed in this league. Alabama, Final Four team. They had players from the transfer portal. UConn won the national championship. They had players from the transfer portal. Purdue, they had one player from the transfer portal. Matt Painter likes to do his thing in recruiting, but, you know, he's Matt Painter. He's one of the best coaches in college basketball. But when you're looking at today's landscape in college basketball, you can't deny the facts that the transfer portal is the spot to go to. And so today, we are going to rank the top 18 teams in the new Big Ten after the transfer portal and recruitments. So first off, 18 teams, what the heck? It's called the Big Ten. Are there not 10 teams in the conference? Well, year after year, we have these new schools coming into this wonderful conference that we have that we call the Big Ten. And this year, it so happens that we have 4 new schools coming in, including UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon. So we have 4 West Coast schools who were previously in the Pac-12, which I don't know if you guys know, but it's just dissipated. It's no longer a conference anymore. But we have these 4 new schools coming into the Big Ten to shake things up. A lot of it's going to come in college football, but I think that the shakeup is going to come in college basketball just because of the depth and the talent that you can get from schools in California. When you're in California, you have a top recruiting state when it comes to high school basketball. Now, obviously, Washington and Oregon, yeah, they're not in California, but they can get those guys. This is going to be a crazy season. It's going to be one of the craziest Big Ten tournaments that we've seen. I mean, 18 teams in the Big Ten tournament. It's going to last like 6 days. But without further ado, let's just dive in to the Big Ten way too early power rankings post transfer portal and recruitment. All right, at number 18, this might shock some people. The worst team in the Big Ten, I'm going to give it to Fran McCaffrey in Iowa. Now, you look at the starting lineup, it really doesn't look that bad if Peyton Samford, who averaged 16.4 points per game last year, great shooter, comes back to the team. Now, he's been in the draft combine. Some people think he could be a late-round pick. He is a great player, but if he doesn't come back, I don't know who is going to be shooting the ball other than Josh Dix. Now, when you're talking about Iowa here, you have no one coming in the transfer portal. They have 2 incoming transfers, one from Manhattan and one from Merrimack College. Both of these guys do not have any stars by their name, so who knows? Maybe they surprise me. The son of the coach, Patrick McCaffrey, is transferring to Butler. Tony Perkins, who was the best assist leader on this team last year, their point guard, starting point guard, is going to Missouri. I just don't understand what's going to be going on next year, especially when this is a team who didn't even make the tournament. They were struggling last year, and now some of your key players are gone. What is Fran McCaffrey going to do I have him at 18. Now, number 17, this is a team who had a really great year last year, went to the NIT, performed well, but we got to talk about Ben Johnson's Minnesota Golden Gophers. Lost some players to the transfer portal. Now, the key piece of Dawson Garcia coming back is huge for this team. If not, they probably would have been the worst team in the conference, in my opinion. But Dawson Garcia averages 17.6 points per game last year. You know, the previous year, he was a great player. He came from UNC in the transfer portal. He is the only reason why I have them over Iowa, just because of just straight up firepower that this team has. Now, they lose some players in the transfer portal. Cam Christie still has not committed yet. Who knows if he comes back? Elijah Hawkins, one of the best point guards in the Big Ten last year. He enters the transfer portal. They just lose a lot of pieces, and I didn't see a lot of pieces coming back in for Ben Johnson's team, so I'm going to put Minnesota at 17. Now, at number 16, again, another shocker here, but I'm going to put Northwestern. First off, I just got to say, what a run from last year, beating FAU, obviously losing to the national champion UConn Huskies in the second round. But it was just a great year for them. You know, they beat Purdue at home for the second straight season. And it's just wonderful to see what Chris Collins is doing with this team who before him really didn't do anything in the Big Ten. Now, you're looking at the projected starting lineup for next year. Ty Berry is coming back off of injury. Brooks Barnheiser is probably going to get Big Ten all-first team next year. Absolute great ball player. Can really go grab some boards, can hit the shot when he needs to. He's just a big, strong, physical player. Now, the biggest question when you look at Northwestern is who's going to fill the gap from Boo Buie? Boo Buie, one of the best players in the country last year, he's gone. You know, he's the leading scorer in Northwestern history. And I don't know if you're going to have a guy who can go and do what he did for this team when you look at their roster right now. Matthew Nicholson at the center, Nick Martinelli coming in at the wing. They get 4 starters back, but I think the absence of Boo Buie and another guy, Ryan Langborg, who was a transfer last year, who had a great NCAA tournament, with those two gone, what are you going to do? I don't know. I'm putting Northwestern at 16. 15, this is an interesting team. I was going to switch 14 and 15 a couple times, but I'm happy with what I did here. Nebraska with Fred Hoiberg. What are we going to do without Keisei Tominaga? Keisei Tominaga, one of my favorite players ever in college basketball history, from Japan, absolute shooter, pulling from Curry range, had the celebrations, just a great player to watch. And his absence is really going to hurt Nebraska next year. They did lose a couple players to the transfer portal as well, but they brought in a key piece, and who I think should have left last year is Connor Seagen. Connor Seagen, his freshman year at Wisconsin, was undeniably one of the best shooters in the Big Ten as a freshman, which is even more crazy to me. And then last year, Greg Gard just forgot how to coach and just never put Connor Seagen in. And I think that's obviously what led him to transfer this year. I mean, not getting the playing time. But he's a great player. I think he's a good kid as well. You know, a real good leader out there for Wisconsin the past 2 years. But bringing him into Nebraska, which is a team who is going to strive off shooting the three, they also pick up Gavin Griffiths from Rutgers, who's another shooter. He's got the goggles. Watch out for him, man. Watch out for him. And then one of the best three-point shooters in the Big Ten, Bryce Williams. I see this team scoring a lot of points, but I really worry when I look at the defensive prowess of this team. You know, if you're going to go score points, you got to play defense at some point. And nobody's like Alabama last year, where they can go and score 100 points a game and beat a team. And sometimes, you know, score 90 and lose. So Nebraska at 15, I feel comfortable with it. You know, I was going to switch with 14, but I just think, again, they lost some good pieces, and it's going to be hard to replicate what happened last season. Well, time flies when you're having fun. That was 18 through 15 here in the Big Ten ranking. We have to take a brief pause here because I have a special guest with me. Alongside me is college basketball analyst and long Purdue follower, Jonathan Miller. Jonathan's going to come in here and he's going to react to the ranking we have so far, but also give some of his takes. Jonathan, how you doing today, man? First off, I just want to say I really appreciate you coming on here.
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, dude. I'm really glad to have you on the show. It's been some time since we did the Big Ten and 10 last summer, but I'm happy to have you back on, and I'm excited for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So first off, I just want to say, what are your thoughts on the rankings so far?
I like him a lot. Well, 18 having Iowa at 18, I think is a good decision. With all that they've lost. Although I wouldn't doubt Fran McCaffrey. He is a great coach. And it's gonna see Peyton Sandfort if he can play well. I mean, he's a big scorer for them, so we'll see how he does. But I think having them at 18 is a good decision. Minnesota having them low is a good decision. We'll see how Dawson Garcia does. I kind of think that Northwestern could be a little higher. I think Brooks Barnheiser and Ty Berry are really good, and they're both good scorers. And I think that Nicholson and Martinelli, kind of didn't get as much of a chance this year, but I think now with some of the guys that they've lost, I think they're going to be able to step up and score. Their bench is a little questionable, so I do understand that, but I do like Northwestern this year. I think Nebraska also will be interesting, with Connor Segan transferring in. So they'll be interesting. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it, bro. Kind of to rewind it back a little bit, you're talking about a guy like Connor Segan, who's had experience in the Big Ten, going to Nebraska. I mentioned it earlier in the rankings, but I think he could be one of the best shooters in the Big Ten, and I just think he's a good kid. He wants to be out there. He's not really toxic in the locker room. Do you think that his transfer to Nebraska is going to be pretty smooth, or what do you see happening with the season there at Nebraska?
It could be, kind of like a Kisei Tominaga situation. Last year he was their big 3-point shooter, and he really kind of led them to the NCAA tournament. And I honestly think Connor Segan has the potential to be even better than him. I think Connor Segan, he's bigger, faster, and he's honestly just as good of a shooter, if not better. So I really do see him kind of leading them. And if you can get Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary to, keep shooting 3-point, consistently, I think Nebraska will be pretty dangerous. So I think I see Connor Segan panning out pretty well there.
Heard, bruh. And then finally, you are, when it comes to Big Ten basketball, as you're a college basketball analyst, you're most familiar with Purdue. You've been covering them for years. With the loss of Zach Edey, how do you see Purdue playing this year?
I think it'll be really tough. It's going to be almost impossible for them to get back to that standard. But you bring in guys like Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer for their junior year. I think the bottom line is the shooting has to be better. Last season, there were a lot of games where it just depended too much on Zach Edey because the shots weren't falling. And we don't have any to depend on like that this year. I think Trey Kaufman-Renn is going to have a breakout season. I think he'll be great, averaging double digits for sure, 15, 16, maybe even 17 a game. But I do need to see more from Smith and Lawyer, and I'm also expecting Colvin to take a big step because he had some games where he had some great shooting outings. And we'll see how Will Berg pans out. It does depend a lot on how good he is. But even if he's not that great, I think Purdue will still be a really strong top 5 team in the Big Ten with the experience they have. This is assuming that, Trey Kaufman-Renn, Miles Colvin, and even Cam Heide take on more of the scoring load. So I do expect them to be a top 5 team in the Big Ten.
Well, that's all we have here, folks. I want to give a huge shout out to Jonathan Miller for joining. Man, I really appreciate you for coming on. I want to give a huge shout out to our professor for this class, Dr. Stephanie O'Brien. I hope you enjoyed this episode. To you, and I hope that everyone else listening enjoyed the episode as well. Thank you so much for the UNC Asheville Mass Comm department for the help and for the setup of this podcast. And don't forget to tune in next time because we still have 14 more teams to go for this Big Ten college basketball ranking. If you guys like this content, please like down below. If you have any suggestions or you have your takes, please leave them down in the comment section. I would love to hear them and I'd love to respond to them. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for everyone who participated in this, and I appreciate you for listening. Thank you.